Come back in Highfield. Then coming back to Highfield, he bought another house in Highfield. Things really changed. We were used to staying as a family. Then we had to have 1 to 3 guys to give accommodation back at home. It's lodgers, just like that song Roger Chetty. Yeah. Then we were the ones also, we had lodgers yeah, to supplement our income. Actually, things went down for the West. That's the truth. Yeah.
The splitting up of the Bhundu boys was unnecessary. It was clear immediately afterwards that Biggie needed the band, and the band needed him too.
Genuinely, we needed him as much as he needed us. And as far as after that, things proved to be that way.
But neither party came forward for a truce. Certainly for their efforts, all the music they made, the money they made, what went wrong for the Bhundus?
People, they used to speak behind us, and we never knew what was going on.
Generally, the Bhundus were a touring band, making their money on the road. They were never successful on record sales.
Did you make much money out of the record?
No, I mean, well, like I said, 30,000 records over 2 years.
That worldwide?
Yeah. It's there was a bit in the States, but you're licensing and you're sub-licensing, so we did it to Spain, but we never saw any money from it, and it probably didn't sell anything. I think it sold 1,000 copies, and the States did a bit better in the States, but again it was a sub license, so really the money was never substantial, and the sales were nothing. I mean, 30,000 records is well, it's, in independent terms, it's probably quite a lot, but I mean, it's sweet fuck all in money terms, to be honest.
Gordon apparently got the company they had formed as the Bhundus, the company under whose name they had bought the Kensal Green property. He liquidated it, then sold the house.
And we were told that the house has been the company has been liquidated because it's not making much money and we can't keep up with the mortgage.
He did this horrible thing of selling the house to himself. The Bhundu boys buy the house and then he sells it to himself.
He didn't give us money. I got £5 for my fucking mattress and beds which I had in wardrobes and all the furniture which we had in the house. We had all furnitures and all that. He put all those things into auction, you see. And when I came back, £5, there, £5 each.
The Bhundu boys during their prime were a proper world-class pop band, and they enjoyed the extras that came with it. Sex and lots of money.
Was at one of the concerts, they said, "Oh, Professor, where are the women? You get us women. You get us women." I said, "Well, no, we don't. I'm not procuring for you. But, so no, you must in Zimbabwe. But when we do a gig, people bring us women. I say, well, no, it's not. We don't do it that way in this country. go and chat a girl up.
Young as they were, the Bhundu boys experimented with every imaginable aspect of sexuality. There were also suspicions of the boys picking up the same sexually transmitted infection, and the doctor had to tell Gordon to keep his boys' sexual behavior in check.
But I mean, that's a reflection of the whole continent, really. It's and probably also quite a good advertisement for safe sex, but.
The earliest AIDS cases in Zimbabwe were recorded in the mid-1980s. By the late 80s, people were already dying. The pandemic had already become a reality. During a tour of the States, David Mankaba collapsed. He had to be hospitalized, and he never really recovered. He was hospitalized upon their return to Britain and diagnosed HIV positive. David was brave about his circumstances. He boldly disclosed his status to the world, probably the first high-profile Zimbabwean to do so. Famous visitors to his bedside included Princess Anne and Sir Cliff Richard.
Of course he had a high profile, and then when he got sick, I used to, I spent months there.
When he came home?
Looking after him.
Well, he just got ill towards the end of 89.
David came home to die peacefully. He had only turned 33. Unlike Biggie, who was never replaced, David was promptly replaced by original band member Shepherd Munyama, who was himself to die of AIDS only a few months later. Shepherd was replaced by yet another old-time band member, Washington Kavai. Washington was to bring his own special brand of woe to the bass line of the Bhundu Boys, as he was to end up in a Preston jail for assault. Sheki soon followed the tragic pattern, as he too succumbed to AIDS a year after David and Shepherd. With the now depleted and second-string Bhundu Boys, comprising only himself and Kenny, Rise was forced to close shop and let the Bhundu dream he had so diligently started so many years earlier die. The jitty sound was decidedly gone from the music. Meanwhile, things were not going any better for Biggie. With the Ocean City Band again, Biggie released another wonderful album. Again, no joy came from that effort in terms of commercial success.
He had a big launch party at a hotel and played bits of this live and played bits of this from the album, invited all the journalists, invited all the music press, all the people in the industry in Zimbabwe, and just did a proper launch as it should be done, and all great stuff. But as I said, the production value wasn't quite there, and it didn't make anything again.
But not all was lost. In 1992, he got an invitation to live and work in the UK, working on a recording with a British pop band called Startled Insects, where they tried to fuse Biggie's jitty with British pop. The project was a monumental failure. This was followed by a disastrous venture into stand-up comedy, which proved not only ill-timed, but totally ill-conceived. The effects of it all sank Biggie into a deep depression.
ndopandakazofonera varungu vaishanda navana timu Norfolk ndovavamutora kwakumuendesa kuhospital.
Next thing that happened was that I heard he was in hospital. And I went down to see him in Chinoy Hospital, and he was in the psychiatric ward. He said the lack of success with this album and the lack of being still part of the Bhundu Boys has just driven me to such despair that something flipped in my brain, and I wasn't in control of myself anymore. Now, I don't know if there were any other influences on that, whether there was alcohol or drugs or whatever, I don't know.
What he believed in his cultural inheritances, whatever, or we call it Chivan, wasn't it? Yeah. Even on Zimbabwean radio, he did admit that every time when we went back there, he would go to his rural ancestors and they would do the beaters and whatever it is. Yeah. And if that's the way they were doing it, it's either the mother was misleading the child in a certain way, of which I believe this went for too long, where to a certain point he became mentally ill.
Okay. And the problem is that
when he was eventually let out of the hospital, Biggie turned to God and Christianity fervently. He joined the Zimbabwe Assemblies of God Forward in Faith Church, a far cry from his lifetime beliefs in cultural and traditional values. Even then, his mental problems persisted. Biggie was back in hospital. He was deemed to be too violent and had to be confined to his room.
On 29 July 95. Yange it started. Dopatika phone rwachinzichi ngonyuma kwenza kunokwasha. Saka kushaya kwacho vanga vamufarira munyika ungarumka tumarumu tofariswa nenguva chinyanya kuvararere. Saka ndino takaenda nepadenga ipapo. Pane tumahwindo tiri mudenga denga saka akabvarira uniform yake yanga apuwa ndo yakasungirira nayo. So tina nhasi picture yacho iripo pambari papokisi so tine mwararambo
And for all their toil, what is left for their remaining loved ones? What remains of the Bhundu Boys today, apart from the memories, is the great music they made so many years ago, for a short period of time to last forever.
Bigitemo ndiye akaimba Simbimbino amai burikai Simbimbino Simbimbino